All right, I'm here with a very special guest. This man might have the most interesting career path I've ever heard, from NFL regional combine director to Canadian Football League scout to even reffing and judging in the UFC. My good friend, Gabe Barahona. Gabe, how you doing?
What's going on? How are you doing today?
Man, if it got any better, I wouldn't know what to do.
Hey, that's great news.
Yep. We can kind of just jump in. First, I think my first question is pretty much, how in the world did you find this crazy career path?
It's really funny. I've always been somebody who's just been into a lot of different things. I actually fought professionally for a while when I was in college and in a year or two after college. So I've actually fought in mixed martial arts. I had 16 fights over my career, which spanned about 3 years.
Okay.
And from there, once I concluded my fighting career, which was short lived, I got into officiating. So from there, I've been with the Louisiana State Athletic Commission since 2004. So going on my 17th year this year, refereeing mixed martial arts. Then from there, it's funny because that path took me to training players for the combine, and from there going to work for the NFL Regional Combine, then directing the NFL Regional Combine, and then ultimately to a scouting position with the Calgary Stampeders.
Well, I mean, honestly, I guess the question is, which job's been your favorite?
Actually, I've enjoyed all of them. They've all been different. They've all brought a little bit different, experience and aspect to my life. And, I'm still involved with all three to a certain degree. In terms of the mixed martial arts, I'm still refereeing today. Still just recently refereed the PFL, the Professional Fighters League, was the last big event we've done. And then, a lot of great events here in Louisiana. So because of COVID, we haven't had the opportunity to host too many events here. I believe the last event that we hosted was in January of 2020. So we've kind of been on a standstill at this point. But continuing to do the refereeing. The NFL Regional Combine has long since been disbanded by the NFL itself, but I still train players getting ready for either the pro day or the Proceed to Combine invite. Still involved with getting individual players ready for their big day. And from time to time, I'll reach out to a buddy of mine in the CFL, and if I feel the guy's good enough to play up there, I'll send a highlight tape and along with recommendations, and see where it goes. Anytime I can assist somebody with reaching their goals, I definitely like to.
Right, and that's where the strength training background and that stuff comes into play. Okay,
Right.
so kind of
Absolutely.
going down like the I guess the trajectory of your career path, starting like chronologically. I guess we start with
Right.
fighting. At what age? I know you studied jiu-jitsu. I saw some boxing in there.
A little bit, if you're gonna take on a mixed martial arts career at any point in time, I mean, you're gonna have to study boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. So, I'm not gonna say a great deal of experience with all of them except for jujitsu. But dabbled in a little bit here and there. I definitely know enough to get myself out of trouble or possibly into
Right,
trouble.
right. So like, what age did you first get into jiu-jitsu? Like, what made you join it?
Actually, believe it or not, I've done traditional martial arts for a very long time. And when I attended Loyola University, and while there, a buddy of mine named Rudy was, one day I ran into him, and he was telling me how, he had gotten into this new martial art called jiu-jitsu with his buddy Darren DeSalvo, who's actually a really good friend of mine now. We become really good friends over the years. And he was saying how, hey man, this is really hands-on. Considering I know your background, I know you enjoy this. I think it'd be awesome if you came and checked it out. So I actually never went to train with Rudy, but I actually found an academy close to my campus, which at the time was run by a gentleman by the name of Carl Schmidt and his partner Chad Robichaux, and they also had a mixed martial arts promotion. So they were not only teaching jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, but they were also running a promotion at the same time. So that's how eventually training for jiu-jitsu led me into a short-lived mixed martial arts career.
Right. And I saw on your LinkedIn, I kind of studied that in preparation for the interview. You were in the men's national grappling team for the U.S.
Yeah. So in 2009, there were some open tryouts for the U.S. national team, and I I went to the U.S. national trials, competed, and qualified. And I made the roster 7 times, twice as an alternate. But I was enlisted on the roster for the entire decade.
Wow, that's crazy. And like, where do those competitions take place? Is it more like Olympic type, or is it just like yearly?
Oh no! So the U.S. the World Championships take place yearly. So the first one was in Fort Lauderdale. So the first one I was actually able to compete in was here in the U.S. Then the following year we went to Poland. Then the following year we went to Serbia. Then Istanbul, Turkey, I believe was the following year. Then I believe they went back to Poland. So they kind of bounce around and they find different host nations to host the FILA World Grappling Championships, which is what it's called. So it kind of bounces around. It hasn't been back here in the U.S. since, but hopefully it will soon.
Yeah. And kind of going back to the refereeing and like judging side. I know you said you fought professionally. Is that what kind of gave you the opportunity to be able to become a ref in the UFC, Bellator, PFL, all those things?
Well, I think the opportunity came. I've been refereeing for so long here in the state of Louisiana that I've become one of these senior officials. So with the amount of experience and the amount of time I've been on the commission, when the bigger events come, we kind of have first choice to come in and work those events. So then typically what happens is when the UFC goes to a particular state, they have to work with that state's athletic commission. So when they come here, they work with the Louisiana State Athletic Commission, and the athletic commission will say, hey, well, here's our group of guys that we want to referee your event. So, and they typically pick the guys with the most experience. At the time when I ref the UFC, which was, I believe, 2011 was the first one, I had been on the commission 7 years. So I had to get a big experience by that point in time. So they chose me to not only judge, but ref on that same card.
Approximately how many UFC matches did you end up doing?
A total of 3. Okay. I've done 2 prelims and 1 main card. The main card fight that I did was Sean Jordan and the Black Beast back in 2016 when they were at the Smoothie King Center. So that was actually a pretty cool fight to be involved with, considering they would have had some highlight reel knockdowns and a pretty good stoppage in the second round. So I was pretty happy that I got picked to referee that fight.
Could you say that was your favorite fight you ever refereed, or maybe was something smaller?
You know what? That's a tough question because I can't say that, refereeing a fight just because it's a fight in the UFC is necessarily my favorite fight. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely a highlight. However, I've had the opportunity to referee some fights here locally that have been some incredible fights. For a lot of people out there that don't know, we really have a lot of incredible talent here in the state of Louisiana. You've had guys like Dustin Poirier, who just had that incredible knockout of Conor McGregor. But we've also had other guys like Kyle Bradley, who've made it to the UFC. So we've had other individuals from Louisiana who have made it onto the big stage. Dustin probably one of the guys who's seen a majority of success from his time up there. But also don't forget Daniel Cormier's from Louisiana as well. And he was a title holder at one point, just like Dustin. So we've got some talent here. So a lot of so I've seen some pretty great fights, not only in the professional ranks here locally, but also amongst the amateur ranks. They have some pretty exciting fighters here in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah. Just kind of sidetrack here. Since you mentioned McGregor, what are your thoughts on maybe going forward in his career? Do you think he's necessarily washed? Or do you think maybe he won't be like the title top guy again, but he's still like an incredible fighter?
He's definitely a relevant fighter. I mean, if you look at what he's done over time with his career, I mean, he's definitely had a storybook career, to say the least. And I really think that he's the type of guy that, that I think they're going to put another pretty tough opponent in front of him as soon as possible. And it'll be a pretty big name fighter. So I think we're going to see him in action again here pretty soon. Connor's the type of guy you can knock him down, but I mean, he's gonna come back, definitely fight, tougher and a whole hell of a lot stronger.
Connor's a guy that's also going to bring in some big bags of money whenever you have him on a card.
Always. I mean, he's still a draw. People still love to watch him fight. And I mean, there's always a good opportunity for a great comeback story. So stay tuned.
Okay, so then going on to the other one, what about Khabib? Because I mean, he looks like he actually might be retired.
Well, it's kind of funny because you have to kind of pay attention to what they're doing in the background. I mean, he's still coming around the event. You still see him at the UFC shows. You see him walking into back rooms with Dana White. I think they're trying to structure a deal for him to come back at this point. With his pedigree and his career and the amount of success that he's had, I mean, he's also another fighter that is a phenomenal draw for the organization. So I know Dana White wants him back as soon as possible. So I think it's just going to be a matter of hey, let's kind of wait and see what happens. Let's see if the contract negotiations are successful or if Khabib just could potentially stay retired. But I really think that Dana White's going to have to open up his wallet to get him to come back in. But I mean, let's be honest, the UFC has that type of money, so yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him fight later on this year.
I have a buddy who's very big into fighting UFC and all that thing. So he gave me a couple questions. He wants to know. Sure. He wants to know your opinion, pound for pound, who's the best fighter you've seen, and he's pretty much narrowed it down to either John Jones or Khabib. So, he wanted your opinion on that.
I mean, let's be honest. Khabib has just been so incredibly dominant in every performance that he's had.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that just, he has a game plan, he executes it. He'll feel you around for a round, but then the next round he's just gonna impose his game and go after you and finish you. So to be honest with you, especially with as impressive as the wins that he's had, he's dismantled a lot of top talent. I mean, just you look at his opponents, you say, okay, well, it's gonna be a tough fight for Khabib, but then it's not a tough fight for him. He pretty much just wins convincingly. So I really think Khabib is by hands down probably the most dominant individual we've seen in the UFC in a very long time.
Yep. And then that was actually his point as well. And then all of his buddies are big John Jones guys. They like to argue on Twitter pretty often, but shout out to them. And then his other thing was, I don't really know the context of this, so you might have to explain it to me. Sure. Thoughts on the Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren stoppage by Herb Dean a few years ago? Do you know what he's referencing?
Oh, okay. So what he's referring to is Ben Askren had him in what's called the Schoolyard Joke. So basically, picture when you have your friend in a headlock and you kind of squeeze in his head. Well, the controversy there is that Robbie Lawler did not go out. Now, it's tough to know. Speaking from a referee's perspective, Herb Dean had the closest perspective in that fight. And it's really tough to see. It's really tough to know what Herb saw at that particular moment. However, he did have the closest seat in the house. And if he saw something that he believed needed to be stopped, then he went ahead and stopped it. I mean, being involved in the sport of jiu-jitsu, you see guys who get choked out, and as soon as you release the lock, they come right back to it. And I mean, literally, like, never even skip a beat. I can tell you times that I was training with my own guys here at Blacklist, and guys put me in a loop choke, and we're just sitting there working. I'm like, well, I'm gonna let him work this loop choke. Doesn't seem like he has it. Next thing you know, you're kind of like in this daze where we're like, okay, well, when I get out of this loop choke, I'm gonna do this, this, and this. Well, I had a situation where a student might choke me out while we were working a technique, and literally, I didn't even realize I was out. So it's really tough to say in that situation. And, I'm going to give the credit to Herb Dean on that one. I think he saw something that he felt he needed to stop. And I think as soon as the lock was released, that's when Robbie popped back up and said, no, I'm good. I'm not out. But you just can never say for sure. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation.
Right. Like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Correct. I mean, you could have left him in the lock for a while and just let him pass out. But, you see a guy, if you see a guy lose consciousness, you kind of want to do what as a referee, you want to protect that fighter. So you don't want him to stay in that particular situation for an extended period of time. You don't want to hurt his career long term. You want to see him come back and fight. So
right. So you wouldn't have done anything differently.
I can't say that I would have, just because I wasn't in Herb's shoes at that time.
Right.
So and knowing, and I've refereed with Herb many years ago. And Herb he's a professional, so I don't think that Herb would have made that call without seeing something that in his mind definitively was a point to stop the fight.
Right. I mean, all I know is every single fight I've ever watched, I'm pretty sure he's been the ref.
Oh wow, that's there are a lot of other refs as well. I mean, you got Big.
I don't believe it.
You got Big John McCarthy. You got Keith Peterson, Mark Goddard. You got you got Jason Herzog. Jason and I, believe it or not, did a lot of the early Bellators together. He and I refereed quite a few fights together. Now he's a main referee in the UFC now, which is tip my hat off to him because he got in at the right time.
Right. So you've done all three of those leagues that we talked about already. Which one was like your favorite? I saw some stuff like some people like Bellator more because they're not as like strict on certain things, overseeing things. Some people like UFC more because of the structure. So I was kind of curious on your thoughts.
It just really depends. I mean, I've seen some great Bellator fights from inside the cage. It's kind of hard to say you don't like the UFC just because they are a really well put together show. Just from the top to the bottom, their production is very first class. And not to say that Bellator is not, because they have a first class show as well. It's just I guess it's a preference thing. So I would probably say that the UFC was of the big promotions was definitely my favorite to referee.
Yeah, I'm sure going in the Smoothie King Center in front of like 30,000 people is probably pretty electric too.
It was a lot of fun. It was definitely a lot of fun. It was a fun night.
Especially if you end up getting a ref and knockout, you're probably like, oh yeah, that's me.
well, I got a TK, I got a stoppage, and I had a TKO stoppage. So I was able to get a little bit into the action. But funny enough, the commentators gave me props on my stoppage, so it was a good night for me.
There you go. Look at you. You're basically better than Herb Dean now.
No, I don't know about all that. No.
Right.
No. Herb's been doing it a long time.
Kind of well, I know he's done every UFC fight in history, in my eyes. Kind of switching gears here, more to the football talk. So how were you able to get to the point where you were working on the New Orleans Regional Combine Director in the NFL? Was it because of your work as like strength training for the combine, or?
So, interesting story, and I'll tie that into, you mentioned the U.S. national team of grappling. So many years ago, 2009, when I competed on the team, I got a ranking of 5 in the world, which was good. But
I bet
knowing that I would go to the trials again and try to go back to the world championship. I knew training down at American Top Team, I wanted to see if there was a professional strength trainer that I could get with, because training myself at that point just wasn't gonna be good enough. So I found a place called Bomb Raider Performance Systems. Went on their website, checked out their videos. I was completely sold. So I actually went down there and met Pete Bomberito, who today is one of my best friends. And I was there as a client for the first year. Well, as my time down there progressed, I started working with hand skills for NFL offensive and defensive linemen. Well, Pete kind of caught notice to it. He approached me one day. He's like, "Hey, man, I noticed that you're working hand skills with my guys." And it was more just like, the guys were saying, "Hey, man, can you help me with my hands?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm here. After we work out, I'll help you out." And he took notice, and then eventually hired me to work as one of his performance coaches. So my initial task there was to work with the offensive and defensive lines and the NFL veterans. And then eventually he rolled me into a performance position where I was helping the college athletes get ready for the NFL Combine and their pro days.
Gotcha. So how long were you coach there, working with combine people?
I was there at the tail end of 10, and I kind of stopped doing it around 2017, 2018. So almost about 10 years.
Jeez, man, that's crazy. What? Now you got to spill some beans. What are some of the big players you worked with?
Okay, so when I got there, the big guys that I worked with were Greg Olson, Rob Gronkowski was on his way to the NFL Combine. Hadn't even ran a single 40 yet. Antonio Brown was there. Probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. LaShawn McCoy was there amongst that group, and then of course we've had a bunch of other veterans. I remember I met Fred Taylor on my initial trip there. Guys like Louis Delmas, he was with the Detroit Lions. EJ Biggers, he was down in Tampa Bay. So Pete had a pretty nice roster of talent down there, and his talent pool was growing.
I mean, those are like legit superstars in the NFL.
Yeah,
like the best wide receiver for 5 years. You had probably the two best tight ends of a certain era. And then you're like, just like, yeah, and then we also had LaShawn McCoy, one of the most dynamic running backs in his time.
Well, you also have to remember that at this point in time, these guys hadn't signed a single NFL contract yet.
Right.
So I'm sitting there working out next to this guy, knowing that they were, good college players. And at that point, I mean, they were putting their own bill for their own training, so they hadn't quite become superstars yet. So we were kind of all just, in a group with a bunch of pretty cool guys who were just all trying to get to the next level in their respective sports. A lot of times I think back to those times because it was definitely a very unique opportunity to share that room with those guys.
Yeah. Could you tell back then saying like, oh yeah, like these guys have it, like these guys just have another level, like especially like Antonio Brown, he was a 6th round pick.
Right. No. When you watch those guys perform out on the field, like you knew who was actually going to make it and who wasn't. Rob, for as big as he is, he's very light on his feet. I mean, he could catch a ball and he's in full stride within a couple of steps. Antonio Brown, man, when I tell you I see him break ankles all the time down in South Florida, I mean that guy is surgical with his moves. LaShawn McCoy was one of those guys that from a standstill he'd be in a full sprint 40 within a couple of steps. So when you see those guys, really start to activate those abilities, right away. It's not even a question if they're going to make it or not.
Right. You're just like, how much money are they going to accumulate in their careers?
Correct. I mean, because I've also been down there with Frank Gore, Le'Veon Bell, Maurice Jones-Drew was down there, Ahmad Bradshaw right after he won the Super Bowl, and these guys go down there, and don't get me wrong, they like being down there and having that the sunshine of that beach down in Miami. But don't get me wrong, when they get out on that field during their training periods, they work very hard, especially in that 6 a.m. That was a very competitive group. I myself would try to get my own workout at some point in time, and within one of the groups, Pete would say, "Hey, jump in whenever you want to get your workout in, get it done, and then hey, jump back into the helping the guys." Well, I attended that 6 a.m. group one time, and that was the last time I attended that 6 a.m. group, just because the competition level was ferocious.
Yeah,
those guys literally show up, and the numbers they put down are absolutely insane.
Were those guys just trying to get it out of the way so they can go like hang out?
No, but actually, talking about all pro linebacker John Beeson, he was a forever a 6 a.m. guy, along with Frank Gore, and they would just compete, and that's how they would get so much out of their workouts, because they would compete day in and day out. So you literally would have guys down there for 2 and 3 months at a time, just competing every day,
right?
And that's how. When you have that group of all pros working out with each other, that's how they stay all pro. That's how they stay making the big dollars and getting the bigger opportunities for bigger contracts, because they compete hard with each other in the off season.
I mean, that's probably why Frank Gore is 87 years old and still in the NFL.
Look, Frank's one of those guys that if you go down there to South Florida right now, he's going to be working out. You hit that afternoon group. He really doesn't work out a whole lot in the morning anymore. He kind of goes in when there's fewer people. But his workouts haven't gotten any less intense. If anything, they've gotten more intense, because I think he's trying to be that 20-year running back.
Yeah. Were there any guys that you like personally grew really close to?
For the most part, I've had a good relationship with all the guys. While they're down there, it's kind of a revolving door where they'll be in for a couple weeks, go home for 3 days, come back. But I've always had a good relationship with a lot of those guys. For the most part, if I go back down there and I see them, working out or whatnot, it's always like a handshake or a high five. Hey man, how you been, man? Good to see you down here. Maybe go catch a lunch with them or something. But we maintain a pretty good relationship.
Yeah, I bet. And then whenever you see, like you just named three guys, Sean McCoy, Tony Brown, Rob Gronkowski, all just won a Super Bowl 2 weeks ago. So I'm sure
Yeah, I
like
know,
whenever you
right?
see them, you're probably like, oh, that's awesome. Like I know that guy.
Yeah, but for the most part, man, I'll be honest with you, it's another day at the office for those guys. So, and they're just themselves when they're down there working out. They pretty much kind of do relax. It's more about just kind of them taking care of themselves and just trying to enjoy the time that they have off for the most part.
For the most part, do the people like how you said Gronk came in coming straight out of college, did he just stay with the same people kind of forever? Like as like he came to y'all out of college, did he just continue work with y'all every
So,
offseason?
so the way that works is that there's a group of agents that Pete works with, and they're gonna say, hey, look, I'm gonna send you this guy, or I'm gonna send you this guy, and pretty much that's how collectively you see these guys get together. And a lot of them, and Pete provides a really great atmosphere down there. I mean, his place is really all inclusive, top to bottom, from speed training to weight training to any type of medical needs you may have. To hey, on your way out, grab all your meals for the week. So there's very little that the athlete needs to do except pay the bill.
Right.
So Pete takes care of the house from top to bottom, which is why you see a lot of guys even after the combine. Once they sign on to a big contract, they'll come back for many years until the playing days are over.
Yeah. Going on to like the next step. What did your job kind of entail whenever you were the regional combine director for like the greater New Orleans area? Did you have to set everything up? Did you have to find people like and invite them? Because obviously, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong
So
here. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
go ahead.
It's just it's the regional combine is for the people who don't have the invite to the big combine, but NFL teams
Correct.
still think they have a chance to make it.
Correct.
Okay.
So the way the regional combine worked was they gave college players the opportunity to sign up for the regional combine and perform in front of the scouts that would be invited. So there were some stipulations. You had to have played college football that year. So let's say if we were in the 2017 regional combine, you would have had to play football for the 2016-2017 season. So it wasn't just available to any person who attended college. You had to have played football for a college team. Then from there, once they signed up, they would receive a confirmation like, yes, we accepted your application. You were part of the regional combine. Then in turn, my job would be to coordinate everything from making sure these guys had uniforms to hydration on site to coordinating with the New Orleans Saints to make sure that the dates we picked were good. And also making sure that we had, and I was also in charge of hiring the personnel for the different testing that we were going to take them through. So my job was a little bit all inclusive, from the hiring to making sure that logistically, the day that the combine came, we'd be able to get these guys gear and get them outfitted out on the field and ready to roll.
Right. How was the turnout usually whenever it came to team scouts and stuff like that?
So, funny story is that most of the regional combines were a single day. All the regional combines that I ever worked were always 2-day events. Some kind of way I was lucky enough to get involved in the 2-day event. So we would have a group of 75 players in the morning. We would start the testing roughly around 8 and have them done by about 11:45 noon. And then at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, our second group would our group would start checking in. We take them till about 5. And that was another group of 75. So on the given weekend, we'd probably evaluate somewhere in the neighborhood of 300, 350 players.
Yeah, and all 32 teams would usually be represented, or does it kind of just depend on the talent pool?
It just really depends. I mean, the regional combine is in a very interesting time, and I didn't even realize this until I became a scout for the Stampeders. Is that those events are run in the middle of the pro day season. And what the pro day season is after the combine, every school, every university is going to host a workout where they invite the NFL scouts to come in and their guys work out for the NFL scouts. It was typically right around the time that at the height of that of all that was going on. So it would vary on the attendance. I mean, but I mean, you would never have anything less than about 15 scouts show up. So it was a the teams were pretty well represented.
That's good. And then you kind of mentioned your time as a scout with the Stampeders. I was gonna ask you about your time with that. Did you have to live in Canada during that time?
No. I mean, I would occasionally have to go to Canada just for like training camp, kind of look over the guys that were being evaluated, who we were going to keep, who we weren't going to, who would potentially we were going to cut come the time of the regular season. But no, I went to Canada a couple of times. Watched us compete in the Grey Cup, which is the CFL version of the Super Bowl. So went to a couple of Grey Cups. Went up there for training camp a couple of times. Absolutely phenomenal experience. And the one thing I tell players who are working out at the CFL is that the guys who play in the CFL could easily play in the NFL.
Yeah.
So if you're going to try to make a run and go to the CFL, prepare yourself as if you were going to work out for an NFL team, because talent is definitely at par.
Right. I mean, I would assume most of, especially like the top guys over there, they could make a roster in the NFL, or like they would be able to get training camp type invites. They would be like down to the final wire cuts.
Right.
Like it's still professional football at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the last Grey Cup I was a part of was for the 2018 season. We had guys for the Stampeders who after we won the Grey Cup were cherry picked by the NFL. I mean, we had Alex Singleton go to the Eagles. He's been there for a couple of years now. Reggie Beggleton is up with the Green Bay Packers. So once the CFL team wins a championship, you can definitely count on the NFL coming in and picking up the good guys off that team.
Right, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting too, because I mean, some of the guys you think that are being looked at by the NFL may or may not make it, just because of how just how difficult it is to make an NFL roster, and then you hear, hey, man, this guy played in week 2.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to see who makes it and who doesn't.
Right. Well, kind of wrapping up here, what are you up to these days? Like, got anything else going on?
Actually, man, believe it or not, man, a lot of things have kind of come to a standstill with COVID. I'm still just working my regular day job right now, and I try to stay. Normally I would be like knee deep and working with a couple of college players, getting them ready for their pro days. But a lot of that stuff is up in the air right now, and I think a lot of it will remain kind of lock and key until we're past this COVID pandemic. So kind of just kind of in a holding pattern for the time being until some things open back up.
Right. So is that kind of what you want to do now for the rest of your career, so to speak, is the performance training, getting the college guys ready for the combine, or is there anything else you might want to venture into?
It's just tough to say, because I mean, you never know what opportunity is going to pop up. I mean, if you would have told me back in 2009 that, hey, look, you being down here at Baumgartner Performance to be on the U.S. national team will eventually bring you all these other opportunities, I would have just laughed at you. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what opens up. Like I said, always enjoyment working with the athletes here in South Louisiana. If there's an opportunity to do so, I would definitely be open to it. I guess we'll just have to wait to see what happens after we get past the pandemic.
Would you ever be open to doing like a strength coach for maybe a college football team or an NFL team if that opportunity ever did arise?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'll tell you what, if you've ever been to LSU's strength room and see what they have going on, you would absolutely be open to that opportunity. Those strength rooms are some very special places. It's been a privilege to walk into a few of those.
Yeah, my family's had season tickets now for probably 5-6 years now, and we got to go on a locker room tour to where like they take you all through the football ops building, and it is insane.
That place is for lack of a better term, pretty magical.
Yes.
You walk into that strength room, and it's funny because you walk through the strength room and then you go through another door and you're in their indoor practice facility. Yep. And they've got that place just so efficiently laid out that they don't waste a second of time. And that's why LSU has won a recent national championship. You go into that building and you can see why.
I
Definitely
honestly,
money well invested.
yeah, I don't understand how they lose a single recruit. They showed us a little hype video. They show all the recruits, and I'm just like, all right, Coach O, I'm ready. 5'11" guy here. He's ready. He's ready. He's gonna go.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Coach Moffitt, their head strength coach, man, he's a professional and he does some incredible things with those players. So definitely understandable why they're so successful.
Yeah, I got a buddy there, kind of wrapping up because but I got a buddy there that's an equipment manager, and he talks about like how scheduled everything is, and basically like you mess around, you're a minute late, all of a sudden you messed up everybody's day.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, but anyways, I appreciate you coming on. Do you have any other lasting thoughts? Anything you wanted to say?
No, not really. I mean, I really appreciate you. Definitely appreciate you having me on. Definitely appreciate your time, and look forward to you mentioned talking about the draft here potentially in the future. So I definitely look forward to that.
Yeah. I guess this is the last thing. All right, I have two more questions. I have my parting question that I'm going to ask everybody. Then I'm going to ask you this: who would be your number 2 quarterback right now? Obviously, Trevor Lawrence won, but if you had to pick, like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields,
top draft.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this guy is definitely pro ready. I would love to have him in the roster. I think he's extremely talented. He's got a good FBI. Moves well in and out of the pocket. He's got a strong arm too, and very accurate. So Kyle Trask is actually my number 2. I think a lot of people will be surprised by that, but he's definitely the guy.
Well, I actually agree. I'm hoping he can somehow fall to the Saints. Every mock draft I've seen, he's not even in the first round, and I'm like, this guy's played like 14 college games, and like he didn't play in high school. He barely played in college, and like he's this good already. If you can get him under with somebody with Sean Payton, or if you can get him in a good system with a good coach, good team, good front office, I think this guy can be like your starting quarterback for the next 10 years.
I mean, I'll tell you this: all the guys that I've seen have success in the NFL have all been pretty cerebral quarterbacks. Definitely good physical ability, but you need, like guys always say, you have to have it between the ears. You have to have that good football intelligence. If you can really break this game down and really understand the numbers, then you're gonna have no problems. And I think Kyle Trask. I mean, clearly Trevor Lawrence is that guy, but I believe Kyle Trask is that guy as well.
Right. All right. Last question that I ask all of my guests: if you can go back in time and experience, relive any moment in sports history, what would it be?
Man, that's a tough one. There are a lot of great moments in sports history. Wow, man, that's really tough to say. You know what? I'll say this. They always talk about how an incredible running back Walter Payton was, and I would love just to be able to watch him play live.
Right.
So I think if I had to pick something, can't say this is my best mode, but this is just definitely something that sticks out in my mind. Is definitely watch Sweetness play in a live game. Definitely watched him when I was a kid. I watched him play on TV quite a bit, but watch him have one of those 150, 160-yard rushing games. That'd be fun to watch.
It's a great answer. That's a great answer. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Hopefully everything goes well with what you're trying to do with
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. But anyways, thanks for coming on, and hopefully we can get you back on soon.
Hey, I'd love the opportunity, and I really appreciate you having me here. It's been great.
All right.